Hey everyone, welcome to my review of Sonic the Hedgehog issue 220. I'm sorry this review is a little late, maybe a day or so late or two. I got the issue, believe it or not, I got the issue on Monday as well as on Tuesday, both from RT Comics. The Monday one, I guess, to make up for the fact that RT Comics messed up with mailing my subscription of $2.19, and apparently I'm not the only one that's had that problem. So anyway, let's get into the review, shall we? Let's get into the review. Now, we basically start off with the first 4 pages with Jeffrey St. John basically telling Mammoth Mogul. Well, basically, first of all, we start with the first 4 pages. First of all, we start with Sonic still in the special zone. Wondering wondering why Jeffrey had shot him in the back. Why, Jeffrey St. John had shot him in the back, and basically, what in the world was he thinking when he did it? Now, the one thing I like about the issue is, like in the first page, they kind of they show you who the main characters are, and they always tell you, what the occupation is. And with Jeffrey, they got the question of hero or villain. So, they kind of, I guess, throw people off. Now, Sonic basically, remarks at the fact that, Jeffrey booted him into this classy, well, basically booted him back into the special zone and say this is classy, or something like that. Now, Feist finds it amusing and all that, and that he explains to Sonic everything in the special zone is for Feist's amusement. Because Sonic tells Feist, hey, you just stood there and watched. And then he kind of says to himself that Feist needs to find a better sense of humor and some personal pronouns. But then Sonic does the thought bubble. Sonic starts thinking to himself that he and Jeffrey came here to help senile old Max, but that he really doubts Jeffrey is grabbing the Chaos Emerald for the old man. So he wonders what the heck is Jeffrey up to, right? So that's when we get into the last 2 pages of our 4-page preview that we saw online. Now, Mogul basically is telling Jeffrey that he has to excuse his caution of Jeffrey St. John. Mogul tells him this because to Mogul it's not often that a secret agent of his hated enemies comes to his place for business, harasses his staff, and brandishes a gemstone of unfathomable power. Now, St. John kind of smirks. You said that all in one breath. You really are a talker. Now, Mogul basically, overall, basically Mogul kind of goes back and forth with him a little bit until Jeffrey reminds him that the emerald isn't for you and it's not for sale. He says it's to restore Axis Naugus to his former glory. Now, Mogul kind of finds that. Now, Mogul kind of thinks, Mogul has the reaction of, yeah, I don't think so. Restore the last of his old order so that he might challenge him and also lose his fully gruesome pet, basically, like I said, he thinks not. He thinks it's not going to happen. But Jeffrey reminds him that even with an emerald, Nagas would not be a threat to you. Ooh, and that he's already proven that, and that Mogul's already proven that he's a league of his own. And it's reminded that you can see this in 163 and 164. Now, Jeffrey does kind of do the business aspect, the kind of the bargaining deal. Basically, Jeffrey tells him, hey, look, while you may lose a pet, if you will, New Mobotropolis will get a major upheaval. In other words, he's saying that, hey, you may lose August as your personal pet, but trust me, once he shows up at New Mobotropolis and takes over, the people in New Mobotropolis are going to want to go to a place, like your resort, like Casinopolis, for shelter, and to escape the trouble, bringing you, Mammoth Mogul, business. In other words, he's saying, what's being wrote down, what Ian Flynn has Jeffrey St. John saying, is that by having access Nagas having access Nagas restored, not only will Nagas, conquer New Mobotropolis, but the citizens of New Mobotropolis would not want to stay there, and then instead they want to go to a place like Mogul's Casinopolis. And then Sonic ends it by saying that he guarantees by completing his mission it'll make Sonic miserable. And Mogul then agrees to the negotiations because Jeffrey has sold him on that. Now Jeffrey does, so then we get the last of the 4 to 5 previews that we have. Nagas gets restored. And then basically tells Mogul that he will have much to answer for. Then St. John bows down and says, Master, you are still recovering and there is much we need to review. We should fall back now. And then then Nagas grabs him and calls him a miserable, wretched failure. And then all of a sudden, and then he reminds him of saying, prepare for my return, I said. Ensure the kingdom stands, I said. Remove the acorns, I said. And then all of a sudden, as he's telling Jeffrey this, Jeffrey teleports out of his grasp. I'm not kidding. He teleports out of his grasp, I say. You get the idea. Out of his grasp. And Jeffrey basically reminds him that there is still a kingdom, there's still a Mobotropolis, sort of, for him to rule. And that the Acorn family was necessary to maintain stability, and that he did the best he could. And that he also reminds Nagas that, hey, if you want a chance of taking back what was yours, your throne, you're going to need me. And then he tells Nagas, because Nagas questions him, like, why would I need you? And Jeffrey tells him, I've been acting all the time you've spent imprisoned or disabled, and unlike you, sir, I have attacked brute magical force. And I have, well, basically tells Nagas that the time that Nagas has been out of it, if you will, he's been active, and that he has tactics, and that brute magical force won't work for Nagas for what he wants. Now Mogul has to remind him that Jeffrey did bring him a Chaos Emerald, and that should account for something. And that he also reminds St. John that he promised him a revolution, and he expects the investment to pay off. And St. John basically says, "You will get what you want once my master is proven the rightful king of Mobotropolis." And as they leave, Nagas tells Mogul that they have a reckoning coming, that one day they will have the reckoning. And then as they're leaving, Nagas wants to know what happened with the Quickster, in other words, Sonic. And Jeffrey tells him, "I shot him in the back." And both Mogul and Nagas kind of like this, saying that alone earns Jeffrey a reprieve, and Jeffrey thanks him. So basically, it sounds like to me that Jeffrey has been, I guess Jeffrey has somewhat been an apprentice of Nagas's for quite some time. Maybe Jeffrey's family's been apprentice of Nagas. I don't know, but that's what it sounds like to me. That's what it sounds like to me, that Jeffrey has been an apprentice of Nagas for quite some time. Or at least his family. So we go back to the special zone, and Feist is kind of bored with the fact that Nagas just keeps falling and falling. And Sonic has to tell him there's not much he can do in the special zone because Feist is the one with the powers. And that he should do something. So Feist comes up with another game. Basically telling Sonic, "Hey, you win this game, you prove yourself in this game, you will find your way home." So, what do you know? So, just like in the last issue, Sonic proves himself in this game. And basically finds the exit out of the, basically Sonic wins the game that Feist puts together and finds his way out of the special zone. Now Nicole wants to know what happened, and Sonic's, he's still not sure, but he wants to know if she's seen Jeffrey, and then all she could tell him is, "I detected someone," and she tells Sonic, "I detected someone had returned with a Chaos Emerald, but nobody answered me, and that she left the portal open just in case." So Sonic thanks her for doing that, because it would have been a nightmare if it was closed and left him in there, and to tell the Council of Acorn he's on his way back and he's got some bad news. So basically Sonic approaches the Council of Acorns and tells them of what happened, about Jeffrey stabbing him in the back, taking the Chaos Emerald, and that it took him a while, and all that, and that through all that, it took him that long to get back. Then, as he's explaining all this, all of what Jeffrey did, Elias wants to know from Dr. Quack, who's there, and apparently has a cane now, wants to know, if perhaps Elias's father, Maximilian, is plotting to retake the throne. Now, Dr. Quack has to reassure the council and Elias that it's no secret his father has endured physical and mental trauma. That would have broken most men, and many times over, and that it's taken its toll, but he can assure Elias and the council he's no threat to anyone or anything. His good days are getting fewer and farther in between. That might tell us something of what's going to happen to Max, maybe. Now, Rosemary, basically suggests that they can't, despite what has happened, that they can't be sure if Jeffrey is acting on old orders or for the greater good, and that because of that, they should move the Acorn family to a safe place and But then she gets interrupted by Eliza saying, no, dispatch extra guard for my family, his wife and his kid, and my parents, but my place is here. And also, before she can interrupt back, he also says, and you're crazy. He's telling Rosemary this. He's telling her, you're crazy if you think Sally's going to be content to sit and hide. And that he's sure Jeffrey will explain himself in time. And then this thought bubble, he gets to the thought bubble because he's thinking to himself, saying to himself in his mind, basically saying to Jeffrey in his mind, you've played me before, but I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt, St. John. You better not use that against me. So, we'll see what happens there. And Sonic's like, okay, you can count on me. Just hold the strike butt in when the time comes. So basically, that takes care of that main plot for a while. That takes care of that. And then we at the Mongoose residence. Mina Mongoose's residence. We're at her home, Mina's home. And the band confronts Ash by telling him it's the new tune that, you know, they don't like these new tunes that they believe Ash has been heaping on, and that they, well, at least I don't know who it is, the guitarist or the drum, I don't know who. Yeah, the guitarist, basically one of the guitarists, the monkey if you will, tells him, look, I didn't sign on to send a message. I want to play music and have fun. Now the rabbit, who's the drummer, says, I don't mind playing with a bit of an edge, but I don't like you forcing all this heavy stuff on us. And then Mina comes in and says, and tells him, hey, well, too bad, because the messages are all mine. And then Ash kind of says that actually I told her to tone it down a bit. Now she goes on to tell them that she knows this is a different way than what they usually play, but that the people need to hear this, and that this new album, is driving the next concert, and that there needs to be a change, and she knows her music can make it happen. And then of course they want to know why, and why they have to do that since they like playing what they were playing before. And she has to tell them and remind them that Nicole used her nanites to make all the instruments, not to mention this whole house. And that if she lost control again, this entire room could eat us up. So in other words, she's using her fear, the nightmare that she had, and her fear of Nicole losing control, to kind of convince them into agreeing to play the music, because it kind of surprises them and shocks them a little bit about what could happen. So basically we get some dialogue between some dialogue between both overlapping dialogue. We get overlapping dialogue between Nagus and St. John by the fact that much has transpired in his absence. St. John tells him what has happened from Urjak to the New City to the Iron Dominion, and that because of that they've all been run ragged. Nagus is like, well, then they'll never see me coming, but what if Robotnik? And Jeffrey tells him whatever, at this point, whatever Robotnik does only helps us. And that it will all play directly into his hands if Nagus follows Jeffrey's lead. Now Nagus does tell Jeffrey that his magic is weak, but his craftiness, but he did always excel in his craftiness, and that he will excel in his craftiness, and that he will defer to Jeffrey for now. And then he tells New Metropolis, be patient, your rightful king is on its way. So it looks like 2011 is going to really start off with a bang, if you will, because apparently from this main story, it looks like we're going to get something major league happening real soon. So overall, I give this story maybe a 8 out of 10 because it is pretty good. You know, it doesn't have much action in it, but it does give an explanation. You know, some people may say, well, does this mean Jeffrey's been on Naga's side the whole time? Well, perhaps he has been, perhaps he hasn't been. We don't really know because it asks the question hero or villain. So we'll find out real soon. Maybe Ian Flynn's going back to what Ken Penders did in the Princess Sally miniseries, having Jeffrey play both sides. But the question is why? Why would he have him play both sides unless to me, Jeffrey's just using a restored Nagas to restore the king. Get what I'm saying? Get what I'm saying? And as far as Mina or Mina, whatever you want to call his new music direction going, to me it sounds like, I've said this before in other reviews, it sounds like what Ian's doing with Mina or Mina is he's turning her and Ash into the Lennon into the John Lennon and Yoko Ono of the comics. Because, okay, in case some of you don't know, when Yoko Ono and John Lennon did the music, it always had a message. So I'm thinking that's what's going on here. Now, as far as the backup story, I have to say it's pretty cool. It looks kind of creepy at times, because you have Robotnik basically operating most of the panels and most of the pages, just operating and putting the finishing touches on Lien-Da. And as she awakens, she's thinking at first, oh God, what do I look like? And then she sees that she's just her normal self until, you know, Robotnik has to tell her, well, not entirely true. You're not entirely your old self again. And that you have more internal cybernetics and a few new limbs, and upgrades. But that was his craftsmanship. Nobody will know the difference. Now she wants to know why. Since he's bombed and butchered her people, since he, Robotnik, has bombed and butchered her people to extinction, robbed her organization of any dignity, and that he could have left her for dead or worse, or dead or worse, or even made her like Dimitri. So she wants to know why is he showing her mercy, and he goes on to tell her it's all part of the game. And she wants to know what game is he talking about, and he has to tell her, well, it's the same game I've been playing with Snively for years. The same game I play with all my grandmasters. Basically, he tells her, think of it as a roulette game of trust. That's because he knows every single one of them, Lien-Da, Snively, or any other person in the Dark Egg Legion anywhere on the planet, is biding their time, all waiting for the perfect opportunity to turn on me and take his empire for themselves. No, but until that time, they will all serve to the fullest, because the stronger they make him, the more they will reap in the end. And that is if she manages to turn on him and survive. So, and then Lien-Da basically says, then let the games begin. So, overall, I have to say the backup story, I'll give it maybe a 6, maybe a 5 out of 10, because it's not exact, because it was being hyped up as to what is she going to look like, and it didn't really turn out to be the way people were hoping. Overall, I think it's overall, this issue, I give it I give it a 13 out of 20. Basically the 8 out of 10 and the 5 out of 10. So 8 out of 20. So because the main story basically kind of doesn't give us much action, but kind of gives us more of an explanation, but still makes us wonder as to why this is happening. I have my thoughts on it, so that's all I'm going to say about it. But overall, it's a good issue. I definitely suggest, if you've not gotten it yet, go to your comic store near where you live. Go to milehighcomics.com, blackcatcomics.com, and get this issue. You will enjoy it. So that's all I'm going to say. Thank you all for watching. And again, I'm sorry it's late, and I'll talk to y'all later.